Hi guys, welcome to Rossi Audio. Today we have a little bit of a product review video. I just got some stuff a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, and I had to relocate my filming area. You see my sign here. I have the products I'm going to talk about is behind the sign, so when I'm ready to talk about it, I'm going to remove the sign. I made a few videos that I was supposed to upload a few days ago, maybe a week ago, where we did the filming over in that area over there. Because what we're into doing now, we're doing a lot of changes to the store. So back a few weeks ago, I was typing over and recording over there because we were doing some stuff over here. We had to clear some floor space to get up to the ceiling area. So that's what we've been working on lately. It's the ceiling area and get everything prepped for the lights that is coming in here. So now we're working over in that area. So things are going slow, but I'm okay with it. 1 to 2 months and we should be up and running and killer store. So now, what is behind the sign? Well, if you are like me, I like big speakers, powerful speakers that can really generate a lot of sound, at the same time sound clear, defined. We're not talking about the world's best audiophile speakers, but they produce music that captures the listeners in a very good way. And it suits me really good. I'm not saying that this is the only brand out there that do it, but you know me, I like Cerwin-Vegas. They're big, they're bold, they're beautiful, and they're powerful. And they need a very good companion. And something is stuck to my t-shirt. They need a good companion. And when I say good companion, I mean amp. All good speakers and all powerful speakers need good amps. I can't emphasize enough on that. Good amps. So what's hiding behind my sign? Well, let's see. There we go. I have 3 here, 1 down here, and 1 over there. And they are the Electro-Voice CPS 2T amplifiers. They can be used as 70 volt, 100 volt, or even a low impedance 8 and 4 ohm amplifier, which makes it really, really almost like a potato. It can be used for anything, okay? So you might as well say that this amp is a potato of the amplifier world. Nothing wrong about that. I mean, hey, come on. And let me just start off right off the bat by saying that the only negative thing that I have to say about these amps, and this is the only thing, and I have tested these. I tested all of them, but just to make sure that they all worked. Because when I got them, they were in this rack right here. Everyone works. Then I took 2 of them and put them for a pretty darn demanding test, okay? So when I've conducted that test, the only thing that really bothers me with these amplifiers is that it doesn't have a on and off power button on the front. The power button is on the back. So if you have it in a rack like this, or a rack like this on the bottom here, or any other type of storage function, stereo bench, whatever you have it, you have to be able to reach to the back. But that's easy to deal with, because what you do is you put this amp on like a 1 foot or 2 foot or 3 foot long power strip with on and on button on it. So you can use that on and on button to turn the amp on. So you just put this one on all the time, and then you use the on and on button on the power strip to do it simple. So that was the only thing that I had to say that was a little bit negative about these amps. And it's typical for what we call contractor amps, okay? Install amps or 70 volt line amps, 100 volt line amps. Very typical that the on and on button is on the back, and they always have it on. because these amps are normally remote controlled. They have an on and on remote control function. So normally you have, like we had in this, there was a remote on and on system installed in this cabinet, in this rack. So when people came, because this comes from a sports bar, so when people came there in the afternoon when they opened up, or in the morning and whatever their opening hours were, they had a master switch, on and off master switch. So that turned these on in a sequence. So CPS2T is an amplifier that if you can get a hold of it, since it is like the potato, can be used for very many things. Like I said, it has on the back side, it has 70 volt and 100 volt out. It also have an 8 ohm and 4 ohm out, and it's even stable in 2 ohm stereo. That makes it a powerhouse, I'll tell you. These amplifiers are heavy as hell. They are a backbreaker for sure. I'm sorry, I just had some hot wings with some hot sauce, and it's kind of bugging my throat. Like I said, they're heavy. Not maybe like compared to some huge 400-pound Krell or something like that, but for being a pro audio amplifier, they're pretty heavy, and they're heavier than more natural hi-fi amps or receivers or whatever. So just be aware of that they're heavy to deal around with. So having a rack with wheels is absolutely a benefit, okay? Now, I have tested these on different types of speakers. And I'm not going to go too much into, because I posted already on Facebook which speakers I did test them on. So I'm not going to go too deep in on that, but I can say that I tested them on many different speakers. JBL Pro speakers, Vandersteen, Cerwin-Vega, and a few others. And I can just tell you right off the bat that if there's one thing these amplifiers do not lack, it's power. It has immense amount of power. They never get, I could not push, and I pushed them, and I tried to push them hard, and I could not push them into clipping or protect or anything like that. I couldn't get them to sound even slightly out of breath or struggling or having problems. And I used both hi-fi speakers and pro audio speakers, and the biggest pro audio speakers that I hooked up to them was the Cerwin-Vega V35X, and they are 3-ways with an 18-inch woofer, and they are rated around 700-800 watts. So they're pretty, and yes, they are Cerwin-Vega, so they have a high sensitivity, but still, I have used those speakers for decades, and I know how demanding they can be on amplifiers. So I'm not taking that away from it. These had no problem pushing any speaker that I hooked up to them. Now, beside the power, many people will say like, well, it is a pro audio amplifier, so the sound quality is probably going to be worse or less than equal valued hi-fi amplifier. Yes, you know, you can't really compare it. It's like comparing apple to oranges or bananas to peaches, you know. But if you compare these Electro-Voice amplifiers to other pro audio amplifiers, the only one that can come close in sound quality, and I'm not talking about power now, but in sound quality, is some of the Carver amplifiers. And then the CR or the ZR 1600 is a very good amp. One of the better or the best sounding pro audio amps out there. That is also an amp that I can really recommend using on hi-fi speakers. This one is more powerful than the Carver ZR 1600, but the Carver is maybe a little bit more refined, but this one is not far behind. and that says a lot. That tells me a lot. So I am very, very impressed with the sound quality, the overall sound quality of these amplifiers. I would not hesitate to put them on any Cerwin-Vega model that you might have, or any JBL model for that matter, or maybe any other speaker. I mean, I tested these on Vandersteen, and they sounded so good. So when people say, you know, out in the public room or in social media, that, oh, you can't use pro audio amps on hi-fi speakers. Well, these are people who don't know what they're talking about because they never tried it. If they had tried it, they would have found out very fast that any pro amp will make a pair of speakers sound better than any 1970s receiver or integrated amp, both on power and sound quality. So if you are a person who is sitting at home thinking that, oh, my Marantz 22 or 23, 75 or 88 receiver will sound so much better, no. I have plenty of Marantz here, I have plenty of Yamaha, Pioneer, plenty of vintage gear, receivers, integrated amps, everything. And I play them along on the same speakers as these, and these reproduce the sound on all the speakers that I have tested them on, up against 1970s so-called golden era receivers and integrated amps, and these sound better both in control, power, and sound quality. So if you don't like that answer, go and get a napkin, start crying, and wipe your tears, throw it away, and go and look at something else on TV, okay? Because then this video is not for you. Definitely better than any 1970s or 80s amplifiers, hi-fi, of similar value. We're talking about $600 range right now. This is used, these are now $600, $700. New, they were about between $2,500 and $3,000 each. So if you're gonna look out on sales sites or go to some vintage audio store and see what you can get for $600 when it comes to amplifiers and receivers from the 70s and 80s, and compare that to this one, and you will be shocked how much better this is. Not only is it better sound and better power, it's newer, so if something goes wrong, it's easier to repair. Because a lot of the old stuff now, it's hard to get parts. Especially some of the Yamaha models, can be a nightmare to source parts for. Especially the receivers and amplifiers from the 70s. They used some parts there that are no longer in production, and you have to scour internet and everywhere else to find parts for them. And this is getting more and more normal for other brands as well, not just Yamaha. So keep that in mind. If something happens to these, there's parts everywhere. You can just call up Mouser and say, hey, I need this part. Do you have it? And they will send it to you. You will have it in 3 or 4 days. So why am I so worked up about these? Well, think about this. I have been in the pro audio business for about 25 years. I started with car audio first, and then I worked myself into the pro audio. So I have 30 years in car audio, 28 years in hi-fi, and probably about 25 years in pro audio. And I can tell you right away that most amplifiers that are built for 70 and 100 volt systems, that's what they do. And that's it. These, on the other hand, are 70 and 100 volt amps, but they also have a low impedance capability and out, which you can load up with 8 and 4 ohms, and they're stable down to 2 ohms stereo. Now let's look at the power section of these amplifiers. I mean, it's huge, has huge transformers and trafos and all kinds of shit that you have in here, and it's built very robust. It has to be, because it's a contractor series. Yes, it's not supposed to be on the road, but they're still built to that standard as if they were going to on the road. These are meant to be installed in server racks or amplifier racks and do their job day in and day out, week after week, month after month, and year after year, in very, very tough environment. Maybe not touring tough, but if you go to some of these sports bars or nightclubs or whatever it is, and you look how their AV system and sound systems are operated, how they are installed and where they're installed, and you have a kitchen maybe next door, and grease is in the air, all that stuff. Because these had a layer of something on top of them, so I have to take everyone up and clean them inside and on the outside first before I put them up for sale. So don't think for a second that just because they are in a fixed install that they live an easy life. Where these comes from is called Fox and Hound in Memphis, and they upgraded and they changed their layout of their sports bar. And I got these in a storage unit that belonged to them, but they didn't pay their rent, so I guess they just let it go. And I've been to Fox and Hound a few times, both during the daytime to have lunch and in the afternoon to play some darts, and a few friends had a couple beers. And let me tell you, all their video screens and TV screens and sound systems was hooked up to this rack right here, and there was tons of equipment in there. You can see some of it down here now. And they also had a little corner where some artists could come in and do some live shows. And then it was also hooked up to these amps. And they had some pro audio PA system, not only the 70 volt or 100 volt systems that they had throughout the location, but they also had some pro audio equipment in a corner with a little stage where people could come in, maybe like a troubadour or one-man band or two-man band or maybe a trio, and they performed, and it was hooked up to two of these amps, and they had some subwoofers there, they had some speakers there, and I mean, on the weekends they had quite a bit of this through the years, so they have seen a bit of share of work, not only just as fixed install but also differently. Some people have fetish for numbers and watts. I can tell you right away that the signal to noise ratio on these are above 98, which is very normal. So probably somewhere between 98 and 105, 110 would be the signal to noise ratio on these. Like I said, very versatile with hookups on the back and stuff like that. They have channel A and channel B, where you have a green lamp for signal, you have a red light for a limit, or that's when it starts to clip and the amplifier is detecting stuff. And then you have, of course, a green button or a green LED light for power, and then you have a red light for protect. And like I said, when I tested them, I could not go into protect, or I could not get them to light up red on the limit. So that tells me that these have a very, very huge power reserve. Okay. Wattage. Well, they say, I've seen a few different things online. Some places, and I think this might have to do with, are they used in the United States or Canada with 110 volt, or are they used overseas with 220 volt? That might play a little difference there. But I've seen them listed above as 300 watts or 350 watts per channel in 8 ohm, and I've also seen 425 in 8 ohm per channel. In 2 ohm, I have seen 600 and 650. In 2 ohm, I have seen 1200 and 1250, depending probably on voltage in. So that's the range they are in. Let me tell you right away. Let's call it a 400 and 650 and 1200. Let's call it that, or 4, 6, and 12. because I believe they are, because they're so freaking powerful. You can easily use one on your regular speakers and have another one that you use on subwoofers, and you will have a perfect match if you have good speakers that can handle this. Let me tell you, the JBL speakers that I have, that I hooked up to them, they couldn't take all this power. The Vandersteens could not take all this power. The Cerwin-Vega MX400 that I tested on them also could take a lot of it in small bursts and short periods, but it wouldn't be any good for the speakers in a long-lasting period of time. So I had to play safe. The only pair of speakers that could handle this amp in 8-ohm mode was the Cerwin-Vega V35X. I only have one pair, so I couldn't daisy chain more pair of speakers like that to see how it would operate in 4-ohm or even 2-ohm. It is listed as stable at 2-ohm, so it's not just like it can handle 2-ohm, but it's stable in 2-ohm, and that means 2-ohm load or a long period of time is no problem. I have always been a big fan of Carver amps when it comes to pro audio, QSC, Crown. I like them all. How do the Electro-Voice stack up against them? Well, I have a very special relationship to Carver amps. They have a very close and near and dear place in my heart, just because I like their products. I always like their products. They always function very well. I was a Carver distributor and dealer for many years, so that's why. I would take Carver over QSC most days in most applications. When it comes to Crown is a very good performance. I don't have the same experience or the same relationship towards Crown as I do with Carver, but Crown is an awesome brand with awesome products, especially the older stuff and some of the newer stuff too. So they're right there. And I never thought for a second that I would find another amp from a different brand. I have, this is funny, at home I have an EV or Electro-Voice owned amplifier, which is in the same size as this one, 475 in 4-ohm and 750 or something like that in 4-ohm. Let's say 425 in 8-ohm, 750 in 4-ohm. I haven't checked if it's stable in 2-ohm yet, but it is Electro-Voice. What was the name of it? Force, and it's made by Dynacord in Germany, or Dynacord, or whatever you want to say. But this is made by Electro-Voice in good old Michigan. So I have had that amplifier at home, the Force, and I've been very satisfied with that one, but I haven't done any extended testing with it. And the funny part is I haven't hooked it up to any of my big Cerwin-Vega speakers, because I have Cerwin-Vega amplifiers that I use for that. But I have to tell you guys, these Electro-Voice amplifiers are probably in the same road and the same area as Carver and Crown for me personally. I like them, and I would, let me put it like this: if I had a few Carver amplifiers, but I needed more power than what the Carvers could give, I would be in heaven if I could use these, and that just goes to show how good they are. I always liked Electro-Voice speakers and what they have made, both hi-fi and pro. But I never had the chance to really dig into and explore their amplifiers like I have done with their speakers. And I've been very satisfied with their speakers and whatever they have made, like the vintage speakers for hi-fi or pro audio. So now that I've finally got the chance, because I got 5 of these beasts, one down here too, you can probably see it here, and I have one over there. So would I recommend you to go out and get one of these? Well, I would, just because of the sound quality and the power. And it's an Electro-Voice, so you know the quality is there. Quality, sound, build quality, product quality, sound quality, and power is all there. So if that's what is important to you, go out and try and find these. They're not easy to find. This is from the very good era of Electro-Voice amplifiers. It's maybe not the right amp for everyone. And when I say that, it's not because of the sound quality or the power. It's just because the layout of it, okay? On and on button on the back. Very little flashy things. A lot of people like flash and bling bling. There is, if you're not familiar with 70 volt or 100 volt and low impedance all in one, it can be kind of like a little confusing for most. I'll bring my camera over here and show you guys what I mean. That way you will see. I'll unplug this power cord so you can get a better look at it. So just come with me here now. So here you see how they have things on the back. You know, here's the power remote that I talked to you about. And here's the on and on button right here. That's always on, and you have the remote here. You can ground it, ground switch, ground loop, or unground it. You have signal ins here in XLR. You also have these type of connectors, plus, minus, and ground. Input, routing, a level, or gain. But this is where the fun starts. As you can see, let me try and do this as best as possible. So you have over here, ooh, not easy. Over here, on each end, you have the 70 and 100 volt. In the middle, you have low impedance, 8 ohm and 4 ohm. So it says 600 watt at 4 ohm and 1200 watts in 2 ohm. That's what it says on the back there even. So that means that you have these green connectors that I showed you. These are the small ones. The big one for the speakers do not come off. But this is how these are connectors, even the big one down there. Like right here. Where you have the 170 on each side, and then you have the low impedance in the middle. And it can be a little bit confusing how you hook up the speakers here. Because there's a lot of A, B, and plus and minus and all that shit. But it's fairly easy when you get into it. But that has a bigger one of these, a wider one. So if you don't know how to operate these, then this amplifier is not for you. And of course, this has a limit. Most amplifiers that has speaker terminals or binding posts or whatever, you can hook up fairly big, fat speaker wire, 12 gauge, 10 gauge, 14 gauge. These are a little bit more difficult to put big wires into, but there's a way to do that if you really want to. And you can have a short cable from the amp like here you see it, I still have wires hooked up to it. So you can use short ones, maybe like 6-7 inches long, and then you can soldering them to some speaker connectors, speaker terminals of different quality. So you will have a transition, but it doesn't matter that much. Won't do that much for the sound, because these are basically the same wire, even thicker wire than what is inside most speakers. So, but if you want to run long distances, I definitely recommend to have like maybe out of the amplifier 6 to 10 inches of wire that you have soldered to a different type of speaker connector, and maybe make a nice little box out of it, or a nice little panel or something like that. Okay, and that way you can use, if you have to run 20 feet of cable, 10 feet of cable, 15 feet of cable for each speaker, that way you can use the bigger, fatter wires instead of these thinner ones. So, but when I tested the speakers that I tested them on, I used these. I have like miles and miles of these cables and wires. So I used that for the testing. I didn't find it to be any less good than anything else. But of course, the distance from the amp to each speaker was maybe 8 feet on each side, 6 to 8 feet. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But of course, if you run 15-20 feet on each speaker, then I would probably suggest that you make a transfer thing, and so you can use bigger wires, thicker wires, bigger gauge. So that was it. If there's anything you want to know about this amp, I say Google them, because you can find all the information on Google. Do I recommend these amplifiers? Absolutely. Power. Some of the most powerful amplifiers I have had in the last 4 or 5 years in here. Sound quality, absolutely up there, top among pro audio amplifiers and power amplifiers. Beats most 600 watt, or sorry, $600 receivers and hi-fi amps. How does it stack up towards QSC, Crown, Carver, and other pro amps? I want to say they're better than QSC. They are on the same level as Crown and old school Carver. This one is probably more powerful than most Carvers, because there's only a few Carvers that are really, really powerful. Most of the Carvers are like rated at like 300 watts per channel in 8 ohm and stuff like that, and down to about 80 or 100 watts. So this one starting at the 600 watt at 4 ohm. You don't have many Carvers that are doing that. You maybe have like 4 or 5. So sound quality, 8 out of 10. Power, 10 out of 10. User friendliness, just because it's a contractor series, I want to say for most people, if you don't include how I see things, because I've been around these amps for years, 7 out of 10. Flexibility, absolutely 10 out of 10. I mean, you have a 70 volt, 100 volt, and low impedance, 8 ohm, 4 ohm, and 2 ohm. So yeah, chance of remote operation on and on power, or you can just use, like I said, a strip that you hook the amp up to and have the amp on constantly, and just use the power strip to push on and off. Very nice layout on the gains and stuff like that. And of course, balanced inputs. There's a button down here for bridge mono. I have not checked what it does in bridge mono. so feel free to Google it. Overall, absolutely a killer amp. If you can get your hand on them, get them. They're called Electro-Voice or EV CPS 2T. And CPS stands for Contractor Precision Series, okay? So, there you have it. These are the amps that I'm right now is raving about. And the two that I have used, there's one over there, and this one are the ones that I used for testing. These works, I tested them too, but these two here are the ones that I really put through a test. So until next time, take care.